When we talk of hope, we're talking about the next generation. And in the era of cynicism, when it's all about the iPod and the social media, which are great tools, sometimes we forget about what's important. And, I've sometimes see the glass half empty as opposed to half full. And it's easy to do. And you look at today's youth and you think to yourself, what's the future? Well, the future is this next young man, Baines, who has represented this state in oratorical contests and competitions involving rhetoric. And it's just not endless rhetoric. It goes back to the Declaration, the Constitution. This young man is a role model not only to young people, but to those of us with a little miles on the odometer. Please welcome me in welcoming Baines. Chaz? And put your seatbelt on, it's about to get interesting.
Well, hi. See if I can live up to Kevin's introduction there, but first of all, I'd just like to say thank you to every single person here and to the almost, I think my dad and I counted 400,000 people in Washington, D.C. honoring our military today. So, I guess I just want to say that we are honoring our military, but it is my honor to give this speech to you today because I go to school every day and I see the youth around me don't care. And it's a little intimidating because I love America and I don't want to give it over to people who don't understand and don't respect the men who have fought, the men and women who have fought and died for this country. So before I shoot myself in the foot with just slack jawing, I think I'll start my speech now. Just a few weeks ago, we, the people of the United States, celebrated the 4th of July. Our recognition of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, the document that propelled us forward on our journey to becoming one of the greatest republic in history. There are many famous key phrases in the first two paragraphs of the Declaration highlighting the rights and responsibilities of the people and the proper role of government. Yet, how many of us have ever really paid attention to the very last sentence of the Declaration, which reads, "And for the support of this Declaration, with a firm reliance on protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." Sacred honor. That's something we don't hear mentioned much in this day and age. We see dishonor run rampant in the media, in our religious institutions, in our government, and even in the highest office of this republic. Presidents dishonoring themselves and this nation for what they have done and what they have failed to do while in the Oval Office. The indispensable man, General George Washington, this nation's first president and a man considered by practically all of his officers and troops, and especially by those who were close to him and knew him well, as one of the most, if not the most, honorable man of his time. He said, "Associate yourself with men of good quality if you esteem your own reputation. It is better to be alone than in bad company." How did these guys know? Today, we gather to focus on restoring honor and defending liberty. Join me for just a few minutes to look back at our history and at several individuals that displayed honor through service to our nation. He anticipated and demonstrated his duty and honor even before we were a nation. He was convicted of being a spy for the colonists during the Revolutionary War. He was caught by the British, and on the day of his execution, Nathan Hale said, "I only regret that I have but one life to give my country." Nathan heard the call to action, and he died to secure the blessings of liberty for the posterity of other Americans. As great as Hale's sacrifice was, it was by no means the last. In the Second World War, Harold Agerholm was fighting Japanese forces on Saipan. A nearby ambulance jeep was damaged with 45 wounded men inside. Agerholm single-handedly carried those 45 men to safety, all the while taking fire from Japanese mortars and heavy arms fire. It took him 3 hours, but he got every single man out. When he was going for another Marine he thought to be wounded, he was shot in the chest by a Japanese sniper and mortally wounded. But he was given the Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry at the risk of his own life and for going above and beyond the call of duty. Captain Ed Freeman of Boise, Idaho, was flying his unarmed helicopter on November 14th, 1965, in La Drang Valley, Vietnam. In one day, Captain Freeman flew 14 consecutive rescue missions and rescued 30 seriously injured men, and he did so without a single weapon on his chopper. Captain Freeman served in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, and lived through all 3 wars, and he was given the Medal of Honor for his heroic actions. Private First Class Ross A. McGinnis was rolling through North Baghdad when his Humvee was attacked by insurgents. A grenade was thrown at the Humvee and fell through the gunner's hatch in which he was standing. The private yelled "grenade," and without concern for his own life, dropped down upon the explosive device. He was killed in his last gallant act, but he saved every single man in that vehicle from serious injury or death. And he was awarded the Medal of Honor. There are many stories of incredibly brave men and women who have died to secure the blessings of liberty for themselves and their posterity. These men and women are awarded our country's highest military honor, the Congressional Medal of Honor. We have seen the United States military working to provide, as our Constitution states, a common defense and striving towards peace in all of the wars it fights. Our military men and women are still fighting and dying to preserve the ideals of the United States for future generations. In 1863, Abraham Lincoln closed his short but famous speech at the dedication of the battlefield at Gettysburg with thoughts that we could take to heart in our nation today. Regarding the sacrifice and dedication of the soldiers during that fateful battle, President Lincoln said, "It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from this earth." Do you see a call to action here? I can't tell you how appreciative I am to all those men and women who have fought and died to defend my country. I salute you, and I thank you. In the cold month of November, a certain ship is floating on the freezing black waters of the Atlantic Ocean. This ship is the Mayflower. In the year 1620, the Mayflower was blown off course on its way to the colony of Virginia and to what most on board thought was a new life. Being off course, the people aboard the vessel realized that they were in waters no longer governed by their charter from England. Without English rules, the passengers on board the Mayflower needed to create a compact to guide themselves and to preserve themselves and their posterity. The people on board begin to draft what is now called the Mayflower Compact. The Mayflower Compact was a document considered to be the first Constitution of the United States of America. Like the Mayflower, this nation at this time in history is a ship being tossed about on stormy seas. This ship of state is being beaten and tossed about by waves of political thought, of radical political thought, apathy, moral decay, and political corruption. And, like the Mayflower, this nation has a rudder to steer it, the Constitution of the United States. Here, at home, our country is issuing a new call to action. It is asking us what we can do for our country, not merely what our country can do for us, to paraphrase President Kennedy's famous quote. It has asked us to help pull our country out of this economic crisis, successfully complete the operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, and to refound this nation to the ideals of its founders and the Constitution. I don't know about you, but I'm on deck, Captain, and I'm ready to grasp that rudder on our ship of state. And I'm ready for any other calls to action my country might issue. Please join me with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence. Pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor, so we don't become a ship of state without any deckhands, floating on an unsteady and stormy sea. I'm on deck, 912 and Tea Party. Thank you, and God bless America!
And there you have it. The hope for our future right there. And Chaz, thank you for all that you do. I know it's not easy. In these days when, again, people want to silence the voice of dissent, and even before we had the Constitution, you had great patriots like Thomas Paine who wrote Common Sense. So again, thank you, Chaz, for all that you've done. And again, you're a fine example for all of us. And by the way, a patriot. I think that's the highest compliment we can give anyone today. And when we take a look at what